Hello everyone and welcome back to the Final Chicane with me, Cristinanneboylan. That race weekend was sort of exhausting. That race was very hectic as well. Not that I'm complaining. Silverstone always brings a good race, but that was a lot. That was a lot to take in. F4 this weekend. F2 this weekend. If you follow F3, that is the one series I don't follow purely because there's just no one Irish in it. That is my only reason. I wouldn't be able to survive if I followed that. How do people follow everything? Because this is the first weekend I've tried to follow F4, failed, missed race 1, and I'm done. I'm exhausted. If you could not even tell by what I'm wearing, usually I try to make a little effort for the podcast. I like to play dress up, but today I'm in a hoodie. Like, it's my birthday weekend and I did this last year for Silverstone. I can wear whatever I want on like my birthday episode, even though, well, my birthday is the 7th, so we're a day early, but still. I wanted to give myself the day off tomorrow. I didn't want to be editing or recording a podcast and then like posting it and coming up with content and stuff, so I'm forcing myself to do it today. I'm running on probably less than 5 hours of sleep right now. I got up at 8. I went to bed after 4 and I got up at 8 to watch F4 and then I got back to sleep eventually for another hour or so. So I am exhausted, and with that we're going to go straight into Riddle of the Week, and I'm going to try and make this episode as energetic as I can muster, which probably isn't going to be very much. I just want to curl up in bed. I'm rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine right now. It's my like comfort show. But no, instead we're going to do Riddle of the Week. Here it is. From Bogota I rose with fearless flair. Indian F1, I conquered both there. I tangled with Shumi, no fear in my tone. Won at Monaco, yet I did things my own. With raw speed and fire, I made rivals sweat. So who am I? Have you guessed yet? Have you guessed yet? Because that's all that you're getting. I will let you know who it is at the end of today's episode and give you a bit of a brief, like, knowledge on them. Because I used to do that and I sort of stopped doing that. But so I don't know why I'm giving myself more work on this episode out of them all. Let's get into the actual racing of this week, though. Unsurprisingly, the biggest talking point of this weekend was Max to Mercedes, if it's going to happen, why it would happen, where George would go, if it would be George leaving, if it would be Kimi. But obviously the talk right now is that Max would replace George Russell at Mercedes. Now, Max was asked about this, and basically the conclusion is nothing is happening right now. They're in talks, and I think it's more in talks if Red Bull don't up their game, if something else is going on. Max wants to know what he could get at Mercedes, and Mercedes right now are probably just trying to convince him to come. Now, Mercedes have an ideal lineup. I think George and Kimi are a perfect lineup. Kimi, obviously, as a rookie, is having a really good season. He's not ready to be the first driver, obviously, which he wouldn't be anyway, but teammates with Max Verstappen, I'm not sure. George is doing an incredible job. He's got the most out of that car. For the most part, it's been clean. There's been a few things here and there, but by no way does he deserve to lose his seat. And I don't think George is actively looking to change teams. So I don't think Mercedes have a seat that they're trying to get Max in. I think my own opinion on it is that other than the car troubles that Max is having, there's more to the team that he is unhappy with, and I'm guessing that lies within management, and particularly Max and his father Joss have been a bit more on the side of Helmut Marko's side of things, and recently his relationship with Christian Horner seems a little rocky. So there is the thing that it could be something to do with Christian. There could be my completely possibly out of base rumor could be it's a bit of a either I leave or Christian leaves sort of, because what wasn't that like the rumors during the Christian Horner harassment, workplace harassment controversy, and everything going on with that, wasn't there like rumours that Max and Max's team wanted Christian to stand down, or else like they were threatening to leave? But like nothing came of that, and Christian didn't have to stand down in the end. So I think that there is definitely something more going on behind the scenes other than car. Like the car is a big thing. Max needs a race winning car. He needs a championship winning car. He is a championship driver and he needs that car. And he may just be losing faith a little in Red Bull. But where would Russell go? Out of the entire grid, Mercedes and Aston Martin are the most George teams ever. George's vibe is just so perfectly Mercedes. And like Aston Martin, I think it would be so perfectly Aston Martin. And I don't know when Alonso's planning on leaving the sport, but realistically, in Aston Martin's seats, one of them has to become free soon. But if George like literally just did get fired and he had no say, like he had no plans to leave the team, he just got fired from Max, that would be like the most horrendous thing for George. You just wouldn't be able to look at Mercedes the same if they did that to George. That, like, a driver of that talent as well. And I know it's quite similar to Carlos and getting replaced by Lewis Hamilton. So actually, it could happen. And on the off chance that Kimi gets replaced, you know, Max and George just would not work as teammates at all. Neither of them is playing the team game with each other. So that, honestly, that just wouldn't work. So I really don't know what's going on there. We have Tim Mayer running for FIA presidency. Do we know the backstory of Tim Mayer? Because I looked into it a bit. Let's see what I've wrote down here. So Tim Mayer was previously an FIA steward who got fired. So basically he played a role in the appeal of a fine given to stewards at the 2024 US Grand Prix. They were basically fined because of a track invasion that took place over like 200 people invaded the track on the cool down lap. So while the cars were still on the track, and there was a 500k fine because of that, with 350k suspended, providing that it didn't happen again until like the end of this year or next year. And basically the fact that he was part of that team that appealed the fine, he suggests that that's why he got fired. Obviously that's not, like, that wasn't given the reason of him getting fired, but yeah, he's running now for FIA presidency, so that will be interesting. Some nice liveries this weekend as well. McLaren, unpopular opinion apparently, but I really liked the McLaren livery this weekend. I thought it was nice. I liked the silver. It was given a little Mercedes, but I liked it. Kimi carried over a 3-place grid penalty from last weekend, his incident with Max. And I think that's most of our news. And then the most devastating of them all, Jade Thirlwall was performing at Silverstone. Like, she was sort of supporting Ray, and I wasn't there. One of my favourite singers at my favourite sport at Silverstone, my nearest race, and I wasn't there. I was very jealous of everyone at Silverstone. I want it to be me. I'm gonna have to suck it up and just like take out a loan and go to a Grand Prix. This FOMO is hitting hard. FP1, quite a few upgrades for this weekend. We had performance upgrades for McLaren, Red Bull, Aston Martin, Haas, Williams and Sauber. VCarb had a circuit-specific upgrade, and then Sauber also had a C-Spec upgrade. We also had 2 rookies in FP1 this weekend, which is nice for Silverstone. Quite a special thing to be able to be in F1 and FP1. At Silverstone, we had Lindblad in for Red Bull and we had Paul Aaron in for Sauber. And both of them pretty successful FP1. Kept clean, got some good data from the teams, so there'll definitely be 2 to keep your eye out on. Did you also see that guy who had his hair done in like Lando's helmet design? Because that was special. That was iconic, and he should have got invited to meet Lando. I hope that he gets a signed hat or something. I wish I could do that. I want to do that. Maybe for my next race, if I ever get to go to another one, I'll face paint a driver's helmet onto my face and my body. Yeah. I always liked to do something like weird at a Grand Prix, like whether it's the Daniel hat in Silverstone, the Daniel mask in Monza, and then I had a little honey badger hat that I made. I usually like to be creative with one thing, so I feel like me and that guy would be besties. As I said, we also had F2 and F4 on this weekend. We'll quickly go through F2. Alex Dunn had quite a strong qualifying. He qualified P2, but then coming on to the race, he DNF'd. So he made contact and he actually didn't get penalised, and I completely thought that it was Alex's fault. So that shows that even me, the smartest person in the world, can get something wrong every now and again. It was quite funny that he didn't get penalised, and the guy that sort of looked like he just shoved off track did, but I didn't look into it that deep. I saw he didn't get a penalty and that was enough for me. But yes, he did DNF. He lost a tyre. Wasn't ideal at all, actually. But his race today was more successful. Anyway, he came P2. I thought that it would have been so iconic to have him on the top step of the podium, Aaron Naveen, to be playing into an entirely, mainly into a strongly British crowd. It wasn't to be. He came P2, and I thought Jack Crawford was going to get a penalty or something like that, because you can't pit under a virtual safety car. So he headed to the pits and he was in the pit, and then the virtual safety car happened. It happened like before he even hit the last like pit line, but he pitted then in the pits, so he changed his tyres, which I thought would get him a penalty. I'm quite surprised it didn't. I don't know, I don't think I missed it. I haven't read anything more on it, so I want to do that tonight. I want to figure out so I know if it happens again. But yeah, I did think he'd lose that win, but I'm not upset at P2. P2 is obviously a really strong result for Alex, and happy for Jack Crawford as well. He drove a really good race, and he was in the pits before the virtual safety car was announced, but I think he probably would have been fine if he just drove through the pits then. But then again, you're also unlucky because you have to slow down even more in the pits. I don't know. There's probably little rules and stuff there that I don't know about, but that was F2. That was Alex Dunn's weekend in F2 anyway, and F4 also wasn't an incredibly successful weekend. I missed race 2. No, I missed race 1 on Saturday, but Fionn McLaughlin did make the podium, which was very good. He got pole position in qualifying. So, okay, start of the weekend, very good, very strong. Then he DNF'd in the one race that I actually watched. Home at 4 a.m. from a night out, and I got up at 8 a.m. to watch that race. And he DNF'd. I don't even know what happened. He just lost speed all of a sudden. That's really it. Also, let me know this. So I was like, why are they calling him Finn in F2, like the commentators? And then he was like, I'm pretty sure the commentator said something like, obviously his name is Fionn or whatever, but he goes by Finn. Now, does he actually go by Finn? Or is that just like English people pronouncing it Finn? Because his name in Ireland is Fionn McLaughlin. Does he say Finn because he doesn't want people to call him Fionn? Which is understandable. Because I'm going to keep calling him Fionn. Unless he really doesn't, unless he hates that pronunciation and he wants to be called Finn. So if you know, let me know. But I was a little confused by that. My first race weekend watching British F4 as well. So there's so many cars. And it was so clean. How was it so clean? I liked it. I don't know, like, I don't really know what the live stream is like week in, week out. You can watch it, just not on like TV or anything. But I'm going to give it a go next race, which I don't know when it is. I have no idea, in fact, anything else about F4, but that I wanted Fionn McLaughlin to do well. Moving into quali, Colapinto span very early into quali, 8 minutes to go. It was a bad spin actually into the gravel, into the barrier, went wide and took too much curb, which obviously didn't make matters any better, and yeah, he just lost the rears, so that was the end of his session. Then Ferrari also not completely on their game. A few of the cars were then worrying about a lack of fuel. Hamilton, one of them, he didn't have enough fuel for a second in a row push lap, so luckily enough for him, the Saibas also didn't come out to do another lap, so Hamilton easily got through, and we saw Colapinto out in Q1, Hook, Stroll, Bortoleto and Lawson pushed out by Gasly. So unfortunate for Lawson's weekend to go like that after his success, we will say, last weekend. Q2 we saw P15 go to Ocon with Albon out, Hadjar out, Tsunoda out, and then Sainz just about out. He was out by 0.0035, which is tiny margins. Tiny margins all weekend throughout the sessions as well. Piastri's first run. Piastri had a great first run in Q3. He got the times into the 124s, even if it was 124.995, and Hamilton was showing potential as well. I did think he was going to get pole. I was hyped because, I mean, his sectors were getting faster, but then I realised Piastri's sectors were just too fast. But Hamilton's early lap did put him P2. Piastri's final lap weren't his best. He was slower than himself, basically, and Max, of course, in sector 2 and 3. Hamilton was obviously with the green sectors, but put it P4, a tenth off of Piastri, and then Max on an absolute flyer put it at 124.892, a tenth off of Oscar's fastest lap, and a well-deserved pole. So the final order for the race for Q3, Verstappen on pole, Piastri, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, Antonelli, Behrman, Alonso and Gasly. Alonso as well, a decent quality from him getting up there. Behrman too, he did have a 10-place grid penalty, but getting the Haas up there, very impressive, especially with Ocon out in P15. And then we get to the race. Also, Ollie Behrman, so the 10-place penalty and also 4 penalty points. He is nearing a race ban. I feel like he just hasn't caused that much, but he gets penalised quite heavily when he does. 4 penalty points. To be fair, it was dangerous. He had a red flag infringement. Do you remember his little crash in the pit lane? He was going like almost normal race speed in the pit lane under red flag. He couldn't have been more wrong. Who was excited when we realised that we would get wet race conditions this weekend? I was, and I was happy as well that the race didn't start in the rain, because then it would have been delayed and a rolling start and everything. I was happy we got those laps in while it was wet, but before like it started actually raining. So my ideal sort of weather this weekend, the formation lap was under safety car though, not that that matters. And after the formation lap, a few people came in to box, which therefore means that they'll start from the pit lane. I think we had George Russell, Charles, Behrman, Bortoleto, Hadjar, potentially someone else, but that's all that I have actually wrote down. Lawson was off early, which caused a yellow flag. There was a bit of a first lap incident where Yuki squeezed Ocon squeezed Lawson goes off. First lap incident wasn't Yuki's fault. Ocon had nowhere to go, so I wouldn't say it was Ocon's fault at all. And obviously Lawson was the main victim of that, so that brought out the first yellow flag. Ocon did get damaged, but obviously a lot worse for Lawson. Colapinto, I don't know. He was just out when I looked. I don't think he started. I think someone said something about him like stalling in the pit lane or something like that and just retiring the car. I think that's what the commentator said, something on those lines. We had some different tyres as well. We had Leclerc, Hadjar, Bortoleto on mediums. Risky choice. So they obviously, after coming into the pit, were leading the back of the pack. Lap 4 was when the virtual safety car ended. So lap 4, and there's already like too much going on already. We had Antonelli, Russell and Behrman on hards at this stage. Then the top 12 were on inters. So different strategies going on, which in the wet always is going to be entertaining. And it was. Bortoleto then had his own little incident, which brought out another yellow flag for that. And then there was also carbon fibre debris. But obviously Bortoleto's incident was a bit bigger than that. So virtual safety car lap 6 again for Bortoleto. And then Oscar had that stunning move on Max. It was then Lando's turn to fight with Max a bit, and Max ended up going wide and Lando goes through, and then they both boxed. Lando had a slow stop because, well, it was double stacked, but then that honestly didn't really matter, but Lando's stop was slow. after that. So Max ended up getting back ahead of him and Albon up into P2. Wish it remained like that, but obviously he needed to box. Everyone was on Inter's safety car around lap 14 out of 52. So we're only in the 14 laps and I'm already like lost. Charles had that actually scary off where he just couldn't see. He was like water came into his visor, like he couldn't see and he went straight off the road. That's scary. And we had a few cause incidents like just because people couldn't see at all. And I didn't think the rain was that bad. And they've drove in worse conditions, so it makes you think, guys. It makes you think. The safety car ended lap 17 and then Hadjar unfortunately had his big crash lap 18. Quite a big one as well. Lots of debris, but he was okay. Everyone came out of this race relatively unscathed. So Esteban actually pitted for the first time on lap 19, so he was playing the long game, but it didn't really work out in his favour in the end. Hadjar's incident was basically that he went into the back of Antonelli. That was sort of funny. It was sort of Max's spin out at the restart was like, I'd be so embarrassed. Obviously, like Max wouldn't be embarrassed, but it was so funny to see like you start and then straight away you spin. And like, I would find it so embarrassing as a Formula 1 driver, which all the drivers do a lot, spinning or just having an off and like all the cars just driving past you. I don't know why I'd find that so embarrassing as a Formula 1 driver, like if I was driving. But I don't know, it was just weird to watch like that happen to someone of Max's, of Max's state, talent, whatever you want. And then Piastri had a safety car infringement noted where he basically he braked too heavily and look, it was a penalty. 10 seconds was quite harsh, I think, but then I was waiting for like some of the actual technical information to come out, which I believe did come out and showed that like Oscar was a lot over. His brake power was way too strong, and obviously Oscar probably doesn't know that. He was quite upset about that, but it got him a 10-second penalty anyway, which put him just into P2. He was leading the race, so could have been worse. The little spin that Max did bring him down to P10 as well, so that was the best of his race over, unfortunately, to Antonelli. Then was out. We then lost Antonelli to damage, so he just retired the car. And then Tsunoda, 10-second penalty as well for causing a collision. I knew when they showed Behrman that he did not just go off by himself. Someone tipped him off. And then you look to see who's under him and it's Yuki, and you're just like, yeah, it probably was Yuki. I love him. It's him a lot of the time. And that's when my mind finally set in motion. We could really get a Hulk podium. Best moments of the year so far. Hulk on that podium, and then he was just so emotional. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're not even at the end of the race recap though. We had Hamilton overtaking Stroll and Stroll falling back to P5. Hamilton was then 1.7 seconds behind Hulk, 36 laps out of 52. So that's quite a few more laps to go. And at this point I was like, I'm not going to get excited because anything could happen. But then, and just only because it's Hulk, I was so relieved when Hamilton started to lose pace. Okay, ideal if we got Hamilton on the podium as well as Hulk, especially at Silverstone. I really was rooting for Hamilton this weekend. But when it comes to Hulk getting his first podium, I would have to sacrifice everyone for that. Some cars made some risky decisions. Alonso was one of the first, I believe, to put on slicks, and he was sliding all around the place. So realistically, you would think it's not ready for slicks. Let's not put on slicks. No, because then George puts on slicks. He was like, we may as well take the risk. He was P7, he boxed, he fell a few positions, and then he spun off. And I'm not even sure if he lost any positions by spinning, but he didn't gain any anyway. So that was the best of his race. Then over to, and then everyone decided to put on slicks, and everyone was sliding around the place. Hulk had a slow stop. 4.6 seconds. Could have been awful. It wasn't. Alonso as well. Haven't really talked about him much, but he was just keeping it neat, keeping his head down all race, and it did pay off. He got a good enough result. The Aston Martin isn't always a top 10 car, and he made sure it was a top 10 car this weekend with quali and the race. And then one of the bigger moments of drama was Oscar and his request basically to swap, because McLaren felt that his penalty was unfair. Obviously, this was before they examined it properly and everything like that. And Oscar obviously felt that his penalty was unfair too. So he suggested, since his penalty was unfair, him and Lando should swap. Now, not a good idea. It doesn't make sense at all. Lando, like if, say, Oscar got a penalty maybe for something to do with Lando that wasn't fair, then it could be taken into consideration. But Lando didn't have anything to do with that, so that was sort of dumb. And I think, Oscar will probably agree tomorrow that was probably, not the best request to make, basically. But you could tell that Oscar had the lead, had the win in sight, and he was obviously just more disappointed than I've ever seen him before. So he let his emotions get a bit ahead of him at this race, and he was in quite a bad mood after the race as well, stepping onto the podium in the cool down room. But it does show, and this is something that people sometimes think is lacking from Piastri. They think that he's just lacking the want and the dedication, and he doesn't have overly out there reactions to anything, like neither angry nor happy. But you can tell the pressure is probably getting to him a bit more, and probably now he's actually realizing the world championship is in sight and he's a real chance of getting it if he just keeps it together. So he's probably a little disappointed at himself as well for that mistake just before the restart. So yeah, I wouldn't really look into that. Obviously, Lando had a very well deserved win for how he drove the end of the race and the start of the race. Oscar did have the pace at the start and obviously the position ahead of Lando, but Lando did drive a great race after that, and obviously he didn't make those mistakes that cost Oscar dearly. It was very nice to see Lando win in Silverstone. You could tell he was very emotional, and one of probably his most special win to him in Silverstone. Everyone wants to win in Silverstone, and especially with the Lando stand and stuff, he would have felt that sense of responsibility to live up to the fans and all of the support that he's getting that weekend. So I did want that to come back to him and for him to have a good weekend, and he had the best weekend possible. Well, he had the best race possible. So I'm sure McLaren will discuss, and hopefully Oscar will be able to celebrate with Lando on a great one too. And then K-Mag being in the Sebo garage. Iconic. He's there to support his bestie. And also, have I mentioned that Hulk started 19th? He was out in Q1 and he finished third on the podium. I know it was a messy race, but he's called Hulk for a reason. And it's not just because it's the start of his second name, believe it or not. It's because he is insane and a legend and wears a green suit, even though the name existed before that. But it doesn't matter. 239 race starts for Hulk. And finally a podium. What a moment. What a Silverstone Grand Prix. Okay, it's time to give you the answer of today's word of the week. The answer was Juan Pablo Montoya. Have I done him before? I don't know if I've done him before, but I don't care. I'm doing him again. And let's give you some information on him. He was born in 1975 in Colombia, Bogota. That's what I had in the riddle. He's known for his raw speeds, his overtakes, and he has a bit of a fiery personality. He drove for Williams and McLaren between 2001 and 2006, and he has 7 Grand Prix wins. He won the Monaco Grand Prix in 2003. He was a regular rival of Schumacher, where that line comes from, and an IndyCar legend in some way. He won the Indy 500 twice, 2000 and 2015, 15 years later. He's a kart champion in 1999 in his rookie season also, and he had a brief NASCAR stint. He competed in the NASCAR Cup Series. He's one of the few drivers who have a win in Formula 1, Indy 500 and 24 Hours of Daytona. He also has a son, Sebastian Montoya. You might recognise that name. He's also racing in motorsport, and therefore he was worthy to be Riddle of the Week this week. So let me know if you got that right. I am going to go now and edit this and then fall asleep and then wake up tomorrow and eat cake. I couldn't lose my streak of never missing a Formula One podcast. And one day it will be worth it, guys, okay? We'll say a prayer together. It'll be worth it, not only for me, but if I make it in like Formula One, then like I'll get to give out paddock passes and merch and everything to everyone. And you know what? Maybe one day, because it will happen, because I'm manifesting it, I'll be like, who will I give a paddock pass to this week? And then I'll scroll and I'll be like, how about I just give a paddock pass to this random person who commented on my video before I was anything in Formula One. You never know, that could be you. So keep supporting me and eventually I'll be able to support you too. See you next time. Bye guys.